Hey boys and girls, it's time for story time. Get your stuffy in your blanket. We're going to read about the Tower of Babel today. So hopefully you have your things. The sun has been shining a lot lately, so hopefully you've been playing outside and enjoying the weather. And we're gonna get started. A little girl named Alice was playing on the beach. She built a big sand tower as high as she could reach. She rested for a while underneath a shady spot and read a Bible story that she liked an awful lot. As she read about the tower that reached into the sky, the airmail bird delivered this note as he flew by. Reading is the magic key to take you where you want to be. The book that Alice held became a very special screen. She walked in through it to Bible land and came upon a scene. Noah's family had children, and they had children too. Then grandchildren had children, and the family grew and grew. There were cousins by the dozen, by the thousands, even more, and with each year the family grew still bigger than before. They spoke a single language, and they understood each other, as well as any sister could understand her brother. Then they roamed around the desert until they found a place one day, a valley they called Shinar. I think it's Shinar Valley. Shinar, maybe, I don't know. And thought they'd like to stay. I think it's the Valley of Shinar. I don't know. We'll build a city, they agreed, the finest to be found. For bricks, we'll use the orange clay. There's plenty in the ground. And in the center, let us build a tower very high. I will reach clear to the heaven through the clouds high in the sky. We'll be famous for our tower in this and every nation. We'll be known throughout the ages, through every generation. And when our name is famous, then we can live together beneath our glorious tower forever and ever. So all the men and women and their children worked all day. They built a real fine city out of brick, they baked of clay. But instead of acting thankful for the blessings God had given, they boasted of their tower that would be as high as heaven. Boasting is usually when the trouble starts. And as the tower grew and grew, they acted vain and proud. They held their noses in the air and bragged a lot out loud. We understand each other, we work and speak as one. We'll all be famous when our great big tower is done. We're wonderful, we're marvelous. Together we have power, and we'll be as high as heaven when we've finished with our tower. The people worked together, brick by brick and row by row. And every kind of weather, they watched their tower grow. God saw their prideful, boastful ways, and they worked out on the tower because they spoke the same language. The people felt their power. And all that they imagined, God worried they would do, and if He didn't intervene, their vain schemes might come true. So God spoke to all of His angels, and this was His command: Let's mix up the language that's spoken in this land." His will was done, and suddenly the people everywhere had many, many languages instead of one to share. "Die bricks, Ricka," one man said, which meant, "I want more bricks." Someone scratched his head and gave the man some broken sticks. The women baking bricks heard wrong and started making bread. The boys who carried water all took a bath instead. Great confusion filled the land. It didn't take an hour before the builders had to stop working on the tower. They couldn't work together. Their scheme had to come undone, for God gave them many languages instead of only one. The city was called Babel, and today that is the word that's used when there's confusion or mixed up words are heard. God spoke to his angels and gave them this command: "Let the people there be scattered, let them live in many lands." The time had come for Alice to leave the Bible scene, so she returned from Bible land and walked through her screen. She came back to her tower and put her book away, and Alice thought, "I learned a lot in Bible land today." When we're blessed to have power, we should use it not for fame, not for pride, and not for glory, just to have a famous name. We should use our blessings in good and loving ways, and God will smile on us with more blessings for our days. And that is actually written off of out of Genesis chapter 11. So you can actually read that in your Bible for yourself, the Tower of Babel in Genesis, all of chapter 11. There's a lot to learn from that story. Mostly when we're being proud, we should probably read that story. It'd be a good thing for us to do. I assigned you guys a new verse for all grades. Last time we're going to stick with that verse. I believe this will be the third week that you've had it, and it's James 3:13. "Who among you is wise and understanding? Let him show by his good behavior, his deeds, his gentleness, and wisdom." So we're going to stick with that verse. And you guys were assigned the Lord's Prayer for an extra 5 CX bucks too, so keep working on that. So far, I have not got any texts from parents that you guys can do that, so keep working on that. And then there's also the Old and New Testament review. I think that's up on the website. If not, it will be. So work on that. Also, your first week back where we're actually having children's ministry, when I come around, probably take me 2 weeks to get to everybody. If you can say those to me, you'll get CX bucks for that also. So really your homework this week is going to be catching up on all of that stuff, making sure. I think there's only 3 kids that have said James 3:13 to me this week. It doesn't mean that you don't know it and you're not going to be ready to whip it out their first night back. But anyways, work on that and think about the Tower of Babel and pride this week. When you catch yourself being prideful or unkind, think about that story and humble yourself before God has to humble you. I love you guys, and I'll see you soon.